$60 foundations come with a promise. Pay more, and the formula will finally understand mature skin. It sounds reasonable at the department store beauty counter, with flattering lights and a consultant nodding along. At least, that is the story the price tag tells. But some of the most flexible, most forgiving bases for skin over 50 cost less than $15 and sit under drugstore lighting. We are ranking 7 today, judged where every formula tells the truth, the 8th hour of wear. And the crown winner was built for faces like ours from the first ingredient. So how does a woman over 50 judge a foundation fairly, standing in a pharmacy aisle with 40 nearly identical bottles in front of her? Not by the claims printed on the box, by the way the formula behaves on a face that has changed. Skin past 50 holds less water on its own. The surface moves more expressively than it did at 35, and the fine lines beside the mouth and under the eyes act like small channels that pull loose pigment inward as the day goes on. When a foundation cracks or creases on a mature face, the fault sits inside the bottle. The face is simply reporting on a formula designed for someone else. So every product today answers to the same 5 measures. Finish over texture, meaning how the film sits across the surface it actually meets rather than how it looks in an advertisement. Texture is the polite word for enlarged pores, crepey patches, and the soft cross-hatching that daylight finds on every face past a certain birthday. And a finish either works with that surface or picks a fight with it. Hydration inside the formula itself, because humectants like glycerin and hyaluronic acid keep a pigment film flexible, and a flexible film moves with your expressions instead of cracking into them. Then the hour 8 check, our favorite stage, where we study the smile lines, the under-eye area, and the sides of the nose in a plain bathroom mirror. After that comes shade range, because a foundation that cannot match you cannot help you, no matter how clever its chemistry. And finally, value per dollar, since the entire point of the drugstore aisle is keeping money in your handbag. Price will not excuse a bad formula today, but it will break ties because 2 bottles that perform the same do not deserve the same spot when one costs half as much. If you want to run the hour 8 test at home, it takes 1 minute. Apply your usual foundation in the morning. Then around dinner time, stand at a window in natural daylight with a hand mirror. Smile hard and hold the smile. Whatever gathers in the fold beside your mouth is the formula's confession, and no counter-consultant can argue with it. Makeup artists who work on mature faces run versions of these same tests, and mature reviewers repeat the same complaints in the same order, so the patterns are not hard to find. Keep one word in mind as we count down, because it quietly decides the entire top half of this list. That word is flexibility. 7 bottles made the cut, and at least one famous favorite lands lower than its fans expect. 1 bottle takes the overall crown, and 1 will be named the runner-up we hand specifically to oilier skin, because after 50, those are 2 different contests. Let us begin at number 7 with the foundation that promises the most and forgives the least. Number 7. Milani Conceal Plus Perfect 2-in-1. Usually around $13 at the drugstore. On paper, this is the overachiever of the whole aisle. It promises full coverage, a foundation and concealer sharing 1 bottle, and one of the widest shade ranges in mass-market makeup, well north of 40 options, which deserves real credit in a category that still leaves too many complexions unmatched. And the formula keeps that promise at first. Redness disappears under it. Dark spots disappear under it. For the first 2 hours, the bathroom mirror shows a face with almost no history on it, and that is a seductive thing to see. Then the chemistry takes over. Full coverage requires a heavy pigment load, and a heavy pigment load needs strong film formers to hold it in place. Film formers are the polymers that lock makeup down so it cannot travel, the same ingredient family behind every long wear claim on the shelf. On taut younger skin, that lock reads as endurance. On a face that folds when it smiles, the same lock reads as rigidity. The film sets firm, the skin keeps moving underneath it, and something has to give. What gives is the fold line. By hour 8, pigment that started evenly across the cheek has been pressed into the creases beside the mouth and beneath the eyes, and because the load is so heavy, each line ends up traced darker than the skin around it. Mature reviewers describe the same arc over and over: a flawless morning, a heavy afternoon, and an evening spent noticing lines they did not know they had. The lines were always there. The formula drew over them in ink. There is a second cost that mature reviewers mention almost as often. A rigid, full coverage film does not just crease, it also flattens. Real skin has dimension, small variations of light and color that read as life, and a thick pigment layer paints over all of it at once. The result photographs well from across the room and looks like a layer of paint from across the table. On skin over 50, that flatness adds years the wrinkles never asked for. There is a right way to use this bottle. Estheticians often suggest cutting a full coverage base rather than wearing it straight. One pump mixed with a single drop of facial oil or moisturizer on the back of the hand, pressed in with a damp makeup sponge, and powdered only through the center of the face. Diluted that way, it becomes a manageable medium coverage for photographs and evenings out, and the shade matching remains superb. Test it the way makeup artists do: 3 stripes along the jawline in daylight rather than on the wrist, and the stripe that disappears is yours. But a foundation you must water down to survive was engineered for a different face than yours, and the same pigment load that builds its coverage is exactly what fills your creases by dinner. Coverage was never the problem here. Flexibility was. Number 6 takes the opposite gamble. It promises far less, and it has kept that smaller promise for decades. Number 6, Neutrogena. Healthy skin liquid makeup, usually around $13. This is the veteran of our list. It has lived on pharmacy shelves since many of us were doing the school run. It was one of the first mass-market foundations to advertise skincare inside the bottle, and plenty of women watching wore it straight through their 40s. The pitch is vitamin E and antioxidants in a light to medium satin base with sun protection factor 20. Makeup that claims to treat skin while covering it. Give the veteran its due, because the wear pattern flatters age. A satin emulsion carries moderate emollients, the softening agents that keep a film from ever fully hardening. So instead of creasing dramatically, this coverage simply thins as the hours pass. At the hour 8, check it fades politely rather than collecting in the smile lines, which already places it above half of what the aisle sells. Applied with fingertips and pressed in rather than rubbed, it warms into the skin and photographs softly in daylight. For a formula born decades ago, that is aging gracefully. And there is a woman it still suits. If your skin runs neither very dry nor very oily, if fragrance has never bothered you, and if your shade happens to sit in its narrow middle, this remains a calm, unfussy, everyday base. The trouble is how many conditions that sentence just carried, but the age shows in 2 places, and dermatologists would point to the first one immediately: fragrance. This foundation carries a noticeable scent, and fragrance sits high on the list of common irritants for mature skin, because a barrier that has thinned over the years lets sensitizers through more easily than it once did. A face that never reacted at 40 can begin reacting at 60, and the bottle will not have changed at all. The second problem is the shade range, which remains narrow and warm-leaning, a relic of the era that made it. Fall outside its comfortable middle, and this line simply has nothing for you, which is a strange failing for a formula that has had this many years to grow. One more piece of honesty while we are on this bottle, because it applies to every foundation on this list that advertises sunscreen. The printed sun protection number on any makeup is measured at a thick, standardized application, far more product than any woman actually wears on her face. A normal amount of foundation delivers only a fraction of the promised protection. Dermatologists are blunt about this. Foundation sunscreen is a bonus layer, never a substitute, so the dedicated sunscreen still goes on first every single morning, whichever bottle wins your heart today. So the verdict on the veteran is respect without a medal. A decent satin base with a real skincare pedigree, a graceful fade, and a fair price, standing completely still while the aisle around it learned new chemistry. Familiar and current are not the same thing, and the newer chemistry is exactly where this countdown goes next. Reading a label for fragrance and film formers is a skill. Our guide, the 30-Day Anti-Aging Protocol, 100 Ways to Look Younger in 30 Days, was written for women over 50, and it walks you through the ingredient red flags worth clearing from your cabinet. The link is in the description. And subscribe to Aging Queens for honest makeup and skincare guidance past 50. Now, back to the pharmacy shelf because number 5 is where this ranking changes direction. Number 5, Revlon Illuminant Skin Caring Foundation, usually around $11. If number 6 was the old way of putting skincare in a foundation, this is the new way, and the base reads like a serum label. Hyaluronic acid to pull water into the film, squalene to smooth and seal it, and a deliberately light pigment load riding on top of both. Revlon built this bottle for comfort first, and on a mature face you feel that decision inside the first hour. It settles into the look of your skin rather than sitting on top of it. The mechanism protecting it is that light pigment load itself. Creasing needs raw material, and when there is very little pigment in a film, there is very little to migrate. At the hour 8 check the smile lines stay essentially clean, and reviewers with drier mature skin describe it as a tinted moisturizer with better manners, comfortable at breakfast and still comfortable at dinner. Worn over damp skin straight after moisturizer, with a separate concealer only where you truly need one. It gives the softest version of a finished face on this list. One prep note though. An emollient base like this dislikes heavy silicone primers, which can make the film pill and lift when touched. So keep the routine simple. Moisturizer, a minute of patience, then the tint. But the choice that protects it also limits it, because sheer means honest. Redness shows through it. Age spots show through it. Softened but present. A woman hoping to correct rather than blur will find herself layering, and layering rebuilds exactly the film thickness this formula was designed to avoid. There is a durability cost too. A thin, emollient, rich film has less grip, so on long days it can wear away unevenly around the nose and chin, less a crease than a quiet disappearance. The shade run sits in the respectable middle of the pack, wider than the veteran at number 6, narrower than the leaders still to come. So the verdict is affectionate, but precise. A lovely tint wearing a foundation name tag, ideal for low-stakes days, minimal makeup tastes, and skin that runs dry. Just know what you're buying. It flatters what you have. It will not rebuild what you had. And if a serum base can babysit a thin film for $11, the next bottle performs a similar trick for $8. Number 4, Maybelline Fit Me Dewy Plus Smooth, usually around $8, and pound for pound, the strongest value on this list. The mechanism is humble and proven. Glycerin, one of the oldest humectants in cosmetics, keeps pulling moisture into the film for hours, while a light silicone slip softens the look of pores and fine lines the moment it goes on. There's even sun protection factor 18 in the bottle. Modest, but more than most $8 foundations bother to include. On dry, mature cheeks, the result is quietly excellent. The glycerin keeps the film flexible. The flexible film stays out of the creases, and for the first stretch of the day, everything behaves beautifully. A morning at the kitchen table, errands in daylight, lunch with a friend, and the finish still reads, fresh. That calm does not hold everywhere. Dew is a directional promise. Where your skin runs dry, the finish reads as radiance. Where your oil rises, usually the forehead, the nose, and the chin, the very same finish reads as slip. Sebum loosens the film it touches, and by early afternoon, the center of the face can start to slide while the cheeks stay perfect. Mature reviewers with combination skin report exactly that split, glowing at the edges, melting in the middle. The fix is homework, not surgery. A thin veil of foundation to begin with, then a light pass of powder through the center of the face, and the slide largely stops. Choose that powder carefully, though, because this is where talc earns its reputation on mature skin. Heavy talc-based pressed powders grab onto dry patches and settle into fine lines, undoing the glycerin's good work. A finely milled, translucent loose powder, pressed on with a small powder brush rather than swept, calms the shine without announcing the years. But understand that this is homework the formula assigns you every single morning, and you should know it before you fall for the price. The other tax is the shade wall. The Dewy line carries far fewer shades than its matte sister in the same Fit Me family, so this bargain only counts if your match actually exists on the shelf. The verdict writes itself. The best $8 in the aisle for a dry, mature face, with a powder brush required for everyone else. The price forgives almost everything. The finish forgives only dryness. That closes the bottom half of our countdown, and from this point on, every bottle left is one we would genuinely hand to a friend, so the arguments between them get sharper. Number 3, and the entry many of you scrolled down here for, e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter, $14. The drugstore answer to a luxury glow product that costs more than 3 times as much, and the bottle that has been selling out of beauty aisles for years now. The internet already decided this one is perfect. The full picture is more interesting than the hype. Start with what it gets exactly right, because this part matters for every glow product you will ever pick up again. The radiance does not come from glitter. Glitter is built from visible particles, and visible particles lodge inside fine lines and announce them, which is why shimmer so reliably betrays mature skin. Halo Glow works instead through fine, soft focus luminosity, a micro sheen that scatters light evenly, so lines read shallower and skin reads rested rather than sparkly. Beneath the light sits the same comfort pairing we met at number 5, hyaluronic acid and squalane, so the film stays flexible deep into the day. At the hour 8 check on normal to dry skin, the glow has settled into something close to your own skin after a genuinely good week of sleep. So why does the internet's favorite stop at number 3? 2 reasons, and both are structural. The first is coverage. This is a light to medium veil that perfects more than it corrects, and a woman wanting real correction will start layering, which thickens the film and dulls the exact glow she bought it for. Makeup artists who love it on mature clients use it smarter ways. One thin layer alone on good skin days, applied with clean fingertips so the warmth of your hands melts it in, or pressed underneath a fuller foundation as a lit from within base. The second reason is oil. On a face that produces shine of its own, added luminosity has nowhere to hide, and by midday glow and grease become difficult to tell apart without careful setting through the center of the face. That is a real condition attached to a real recommendation. One more note for the curious, because the name confuses people. The word filter is earning its keep in that title. This bottle behaves less like a traditional foundation and more like the real-life version of the smoothing effect your granddaughter uses on her photos. The verdict respects the hype and trims it. The best light on this list, a genuine soft focus effect at a drugstore price, beautiful on dry, well-prepped, mature skin. It flatters more than it covers, and it knows it. But the crown we are handing out today has stricter requirements than beauty. Number 2. NYX Bear With Me Blur Tint Foundation, sitting right at our $15 ceiling, and the answer for every woman who watched the last 2 entries thinking that her own skin manufactures plenty of glow by 10 in the morning. This is a soft matte done correctly, and on mature skin that phrase has historically been a contradiction. The mechanism deserves a close look. Traditional longwear mattes kill shine with absorbent powders and fast-drying agents, and on a face over 50 that approach strips an already thinning moisture barrier, then leaves the finish flat. chalky, and cracked into every line by lunchtime. The blur tint takes a different route. It suspends soft focus blurring particles in a lightweight, flexible tint, so shine is scattered optically instead of being stripped chemically. The skin underneath keeps its comfort while the surface loses its glare. Reviewers with combination and oilier, mature skin report the difference exactly where our test lives, at the hour 8 check, where this film still sits evenly through the smile lines instead of pooling in them, and the center of the face reads calm rather than powdery. Coverage builds from light to a believable medium with a dense buffing brush, enough to soften sunspots without drifting into the mask effect. And the finished surface photographs the way dermatologists describe healthy skin, low shine with life still in it. Now for the honest weakness, and it is a real one: the shade wall. This line carries roughly a dozen shades, which is simply not enough, a genuine failure inside an otherwise thoughtful formula, and the only reason this bottle is not fighting for the overall crown today. If you sit between two of its shades, buy both and blend on the back of your hand, an imperfect fix for an imperfect range, but mature reviewers report that it works, and layer wisely around it. Cream blush goes on before the tint so it melts underneath the blur, and any powder product waits until after, or the finish turns patchy. So mark this one carefully before we move on. The winner we are about to name is being judged across every skin type at once. For oilier, mature skin specifically, your ranking effectively ends right here. This is the runner-up we promised in the opening, and for shine-prone faces, it is a quiet first place. A soft matte that respects age took the aisle a very long time to produce. It finally exists, and it costs $15, which brings us to the crown. Number 1. L'Oreal Age Perfect Radiant Serum Foundation, just under $15, and the only bottle in this entire countdown engineered from the first ingredient for the face that will actually wear it. Start with the base, because the base is the whole argument. Before any pigment arrives, this formula is a hydrating serum, built around humectants that keep drawing water into the film hour after hour. Remember the word we planted at the top of this video. A hydrated film stays flexible, and a flexible film moves with your expressions instead of cracking into them. That is the entire science of not creasing, and this foundation builds it into the delivery system itself, rather than asking your morning moisturizer to carry the job alone. L'Oreal could have stopped there and still had a contender. They did not stop there. The bottle also carries Sun Protection Factor 50, the highest on this list by a wide margin. And sunscreen is the one ingredient dermatologists put ahead of every serum and every cream when they speak honestly about aging, because unprotected daylight remains the fastest way any face grows older. Now the hour 8 check, the stage where every other bottle today confessed something. On normal to dry mature skin, this film thins evenly instead of gathering. The smile lines stay quiet. The under-eye area holds, and the radiant finish, this is the detail separating it from cheaper glow, reads as moisture rather than shine, so light sits across the whole face instead of collecting on the high points and the tip of the nose. Mature reviewers, the exact audience this was designed for, keep landing on the same idea in different words, that it makes skin look like itself on a better day. Coverage runs light to medium, builds with a damp sponge without caking, and the shade range lands around 30 options. Imperfect, but wide enough to serve most of the women watching this. One pump pressed outward from the center of the face, a full minute for the serum to settle, and concealer only after that. Applied that way, it earns every claim on its box. The wear diary on this one is boring in the best possible way. Breakfast table, desk lamp, grocery store fluorescence, dinner by candlelight, and the same even film smiling back at every checkpoint. One fair warning attached to the trophy. On truly oily skin, the radiance can read as one glow too many by late afternoon, which is exactly why the blur tint at number 2 exists, and why we crown 2 winners instead of pretending a single bottle fits every face. It is not a young formula adjusted downward with a new label. It is a base designed around skin over 50 from the very start, and at a drugstore price that remains close to unheard of. So the crowns are settled. For most mature skin, and especially for normal to dry faces, the overall winner is the age-perfect serum foundation. Flexible, protective, and honest at hour 8. For oilier faces, take the NYX Blur Tint from number 2 and do not look back. 2 bottles, both under $15, and neither one asking your skin to pretend it is 30. Step back from the shelf, and the whole ranking says one thing. That department store beauty counter from the start of this video sells confidence by the ounce, and the consultant is lovely, and the lighting is doing half her job. The drugstore aisle, at its best, sells the only qualities that survive to hour 8 on a face over 50. Flexibility in the film, hydration in the base, and a finish willing to negotiate with texture instead of fighting it. The $60 promise was never the requirement. The right $15 formula, matched to how your skin actually behaves, does the same work with grocery money left over. If your cheeks run dry, the crown is yours. If your shine arrives by 10, the blur is. Either way, the aisle finally answers to us, and that took long enough. Imagine 30 days of what this single aisle just taught you. The 30-day anti-aging protocol gives women over 5,100 ways to look younger. One short lesson and one action step at a time, including instant lift techniques for mature eyes and a final week of confidence work. Scan the code on your screen. Then subscribe to Aging Queens for the honest version of beauty after 50. Now the comment section belongs to you, and we do read it. Which drugstore foundation has aged the most gracefully with you, and which one did your skin outgrow first? Name names below, shades and all, because your answer will save the next woman standing in that same aisle.